Good afternoon. I'm Gil Cedillo. I'm in for Mr. Weezar. And Mr. Englander. This is the Planning and Land Use Committee meeting Tuesday, July 1st, 2014 in the Edward R. Roybal hearing room. We have a modest agenda. We have one in which we have many consent items. I have cards for items 3, 4, 5, items 6, items 6 and 7. You are welcome to speak, but you are not required to. Okay, we anticipate Mr. Englander, but if not, we will move all items forward as communications to the full council. We will begin with a report from our director.
Thank you, Councilmember Cedillo. Mike LeGrand with the Planning Department. A few things to report since I last reported to the committee. We had an excellent training for our new area planning commissioners and existing area planning commissioners 2 weeks ago. That went very well. The city attorney played a big role in us in discussing the ins and outs of being an appeal body and being on an area planning commission. We had, I want to say, over 40 people, 30 to 40 people in attendance, which is a very good turnout. Very robust conversations and questions and feedback with the staff, and so it's a great opportunity to get to know our new commissioners that you've approved through this committee, and it's a great chance to sit down with the commissioners and kind of explain their role. We had also some past commissioners from Central Area Planning Commission talk about their tenure on the commission for over 8 years and what they learned from it, and it was a very good give and take, and I think education on both ends from the department staff as well as the new commissioners. So we'll be doing another one of these next quarter to try and get this going biannually to have a more robust conversation with our appointees in the area planning commissions and make sure that we provide them with all the education they need when they step into these roles, but also feedback to the staff on how we can serve them better. So it was a great morning and actually a whole day spent with them. One other item I wanted to report on was yesterday, in collaboration with the mayor's office, the Rockefeller Center has chosen Los Angeles as 100 of the cities for resiliency planning. It's a great opportunity for the city to look at natural disasters as well as man-made disasters and how to prepare for them. Councilman Engler was in attendance. We had a very robust panel discussion looking at how to prepare the city for possible earthquakes in the future, as well as droughts and other climate change and sustainability actions that we can take forward. It was a full day. We had a really thoughtful dialogue and more conversations to come as the mayor's office appoints a resiliency officer for the city to help coordinate all the city efforts to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction. So it was a time well spent, and everyone in participation, I think, got a lot out of the conference. And that concludes my report. I'll be here for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you for that. And just if you can give us an update on where we are with the Granada Hills plan as well.
Yes, we recently received comments back on the draft of the final EIR from the city attorney's office, and our staff's combing through those comments and beginning to work on the preparations to make those changes that were recommended by the city attorney. And so if you'd like, at the next meeting, I can report to you, or between now and the next meeting, on exactly what that timeline looks like and to bring that plan forward.
Or if you could just let me know offline.
Perfect.
So it'd be even sooner because we're going into the recess. That would be great.
I will.
And then the comments from so the city attorney's office is now completed with it? It's done?
Yes, they've completed their comments, and we'll make amendments and work with them on those amendments.
Great. Excellent. Thank you.
Item number 3, Councilmember Buscaino motion for Habitat for Humanity project. And understanding CD 15 has additional amendments.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Heather Anderson, Planning Deputy for CD 15. In light of today's 70-item council session, I will keep this brief. Primarily, I want to be available for any questions you may have. As mentioned in the motion, the city-owned property has been vacant since 1990. The city saw an opportunity in this property not just for affordable housing, but for affordable home ownership. After nearly 10 years working toward this project, we are excited to see the finish line approaching. The intent of this motion is to save Habitat for Humanity the cost of a zone change application fee. At this time, we have a minor revision request to the motion. We ask that you add the City Attorney's Office and the CAO to the motion, specifically to the last paragraph, so that the motion emphasizes the assistance of the City Attorney's Office and the CAO in addition to GSD. The revised paragraph would begin, I further move that the Council instruct the Planning Department with the assistance of the GSD, City Attorney's Office, and the CAO to expedite the processing of all necessary applications, etc. Do you have any questions? No.
Questions? No questions. We have cards. Yes, we have a card from Heather. Is it Heather Anderson?
Oh, that's me.
Okay. Well, you're good.
Excuse me, Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. Just to add that on the expediting, that consistent with state law, because there are state law requirements that you can't shorten those deadlines, those timeframes.
Did anyone give me a card for our item 3? No? That's it. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to refer that to staff on consent and send to the full council. As amended. Okay. Is that good with you, Mr. Englander? Item number 4. We're prepared to move this on consent.
Just very quick question. Oh, we have cards? Do we have
We
cards?
have a ton of cards on number 4.
No.
Separate items. Sending both to the council. Yes. Okay, so item number 4. We have a whole bevy of cards. Renee, you want to come up first and tell us where we're at?
Thank you very much. Councilman Cedillo and Councilman Englander, thank you very much for hearing this case. I want to thank Tanner Blackman from Councilman Weezar's office for finally putting this on the agenda. The Small Lot Ordinance was enacted in 2004, and it was an innovative idea to get people to live in single-family homes in multiple zones. However, that has created some issues and some impacts on the existing neighborhoods, and we would like the department to look at our amendments to this ordinance and report back in a very short amount of time. And I handed out a sheet of some of the recommendations that we made that need to be amended in the Small Lot Ordinance that we see. And I'll go real brief through it so the people in the audience would know what they are. And that is, in the multiple zones of RD 1.5 and R3, the requirement for setback is usually 15 feet. The small lot does not have a requirement for a front yard setback. We'd like to have 15 feet for small lot ordinances enacted in that. The other big problem is the trash collection. When you have 7 or 10 small lots, you end up with 14 to 20 barrels, bins on the street. They need to have private pickup, just like any other condo project or apartment project, so that we don't have all those barrels on the street. That would be, number 2 would be the collection. And number 3 is the Small Lot Ordinance allows tandem parking. And when you have a single-family home and there is a garage and you can park 2 cars, I don't think we should allow tandem parking because that encourages people to park on the street because it's inconvenient for them. And then roof decks have become an issue. I think the planning department needs to look at how the roof decks are being done when they are covered, and some people are asking for sinks and other things on the roof decks. That means it could become a habitable area and it could be a party deck. So we need to come up with some conditions to prevent noise and other things from emanating from those roof decks. And the other thing is, at the present time, the elevations are not required to be presented at the public hearing for small lot ordinances. And we'd like to have those elevations at every hearing so that a neighbor who's next door could see what is being built to see if they have an impact on them or not. And that should be a requirement. And it would be nice for the architects and the developers to take a look at the architectural character of the neighborhood and try and do developments that would be a benefit to the neighborhood, make it more compatible with the neighborhood, and that would be our recommendations, and we'd like planning department to look at it and come back in a short amount of time. And I know that this is citywide. We've heard from a lot of people. So I thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Sooner or later? Nope. Thank you, Renee. Okay, let's hear from Keith Nakata. And I'll ask David Garfinkel to also come up and Doug Haynes to also join him in line.
Hi, good afternoon. Keith Nakata. I'm a member of the Land Use Committee of the Mid-City West Community Council. I'm just giving personal comments today on the motion. I have seen many proposed small lot subdivisions for our area, some good, some not so. The concept of small lots is a good housing option to provide in our city, but because of the density, mass, and scale of this type of housing, certain lots do lend themselves to this kind of development. Lots on corners, lots with alleys are good candidates that provide siding and driveway options and can be less impactful to adjacent properties. This motion is a chance to review what is working and what is not. We are hearing from many neighbors in our area about concerns they are having, so we are looking forward to the planning department to provide us better and clearer guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garfinkel?
My name is David Garfinkel. I'm president of the Tarzana Property Owners Association and land use chair of the Tarzana Neighborhood Council. We've submitted, both of those organizations have submitted letters about this ordinance, and I've handed them out again. They're online. I've handed them out again. In both those capacities, we support this ordinance with some suggested changes. The Tarzana Neighborhood Council supported the concept of a review of the ordinance and kind of left it at that. Tarzana property owners suggested several changes. You've heard a couple of them. Let me just very briefly go through a couple of others. We suggest front yard setbacks on all projects, height limitations appropriate to the surrounding properties, orient the homes away from neighbors. That's both. Is that it?
Finish your thought.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You have the information.
Thank you, Mr. Garfinkel. Mr. Haynes?
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes. I chair the Planning Committee for the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council, but this is just preliminary comments. First, thank you very much to Renee for her suggestions on the amendments. I would say in response, there definitely needs to be consistent front yard setbacks across all zones. That's one of the primary complaints we hear consistently from the community on these small lot subdivisions. Also, transitional height limitations like we have under SNAP, where if you have a very low property adjacent to the proposed small lot subdivision, that would be a transitional height. And then also compatible design. And I brought some things to show. With the new design guidelines, first off, it talks about intent. Intent is meaningless, and it really needs to be removed. It needs to be references to conditions that are enforceable. The old small lot subdivision guidelines had really architectural compatibility expressed within them. The new ones show exactly the type of buildings that would be rejected by the community. Also, I included what we had as our neighborhood, which was this historical neighborhood, and then they brought in this outrageous project that they wanted to put in that had no compatibility whatsoever with our community. And I also included with that packet what they did in South Pasadena near the Gold Line stop. They put in beautiful reproductions of craftsman homes right across the street of 100-year-old homes. It fits right in, and that's exactly what the small lot subdivision ordinance was designed to do.
Is that at Mission and Meridian? Where is that?
This is in South Pasadena, right at the Gold Line stop.
Yes,
and
Mission and Meridian.
Yeah, and I passed it out to you so you have a copy of it. But this is exactly what the small lot subdivision ordinance was intended to do. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Don Hunt, Brian Goodgame, and Bruce Cooper.
Hello, my name is Don Hunt, and I'm the president of the South Hollywood Neighborhood Association. When talking about small lot subdivisions, developers often use the mantra that they're trying to achieve the goal of building more affordable housing, when in fact they're also often removing affordable apartment units and replacing them with mini-lot McMansions with large main rooms, often 5 bedrooms and 4 baths. Developers build to a maximum height, density, throw in rooftop decks, set these monoliths as close to the front of the lot as possible, no matter how it affects the surrounding neighborhood. The projects are often not compatible with the neighborhoods, and ultimately the developers are making profits on the back of destroying the character of the neighborhood. It's time to fix the problem, and this motion has the potential of revising this law to make these projects more compatible with the neighborhood and to bring them closer to their original goal of providing housing that's affordable. I ask that you support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Byron Goodgame, Granada Hills, California. Wanted to support the motion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ray. Bruce?
Good afternoon, honorable council members. I urge you to recommend that the City Council make 4 revisions to the small lot subdivision ordinance in order to ensure that future small lot subdivisions are compatible with the neighborhood as the motion directs. First, I would ask that you have the ordinance revised to make the small lot design guidelines mandatory. If the guidelines aren't mandatory, they're not going to be implemented. The guidelines were developed through careful and thoughtful consideration by the Urban Design Studio, quote, to ensure that a project is compatible with its surroundings. So compliance with the guidelines must be made mandatory in order to ensure compatibility with the neighborhood. Second, revise the ordinance to be inapplicable to hillside areas. Hillside areas are not well equipped for the increased density caused by small lot subdivisions. Small lot subdivisions also contravene hillside area community plans, goals, and objectives to limit land use intensity. Third, revise the ordinance to restrict its application to lots that are adjacent to multifamily developments so that you don't have small lot subdivisions in the middle of single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Miner, Ronald Ziff, and Esther Eisenstein.
My name is Nicole Miner. I'm representing the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. We are in support of the motion with certain additions that we would like to ask for, and what is particularly to restrict these small lot subdivisions from the baseline hillsides and, of course, the hillsides themselves. There are many unintended consequences that would result from this type of building, and we would like to have an exemption for the hillsides. I would also like to go on record that the Bel Air Beverly Crest has joined 80% of the neighborhood councils throughout the city to request of the city council that there be a moratorium on the small lot subdivision until these revisions can take place and the neighborhoods can give input into the recent invasion of these small lot subdivision buildings that have blighted the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ron Ziff. I'm Vice President of Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council and Land Use Chair. We favor the proposal. It's badly needed. Sherman Oaks is facing a number of these developments in the coming months. We would like one item added to the measure, and that's where a small lot subdivision abuts an R1 single-family residence, that the rear yard setback be kept at 15 feet. Any less destroys the privacy of the single-family residence behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Esther?
Hi, my name is Esther Eisenstein. I represent 28 tenants, 28 constituents, who right now we have a small lot subdivision being proposed on a lot next to us between a house and our apartment building, which will totally darken 14 tenants' apartments, and it takes away from their enjoyment, and they've been there for many years. So I want to support the new proposals, and I just feel that there's different sublot divisions, and I think, as Renee said, the ones on corners, the ones with alleys, they're much more amenable to this small lot subdivision. I'm actually usually in support of making things newer and better, but they just don't fit, and they should be on lots that will accommodate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Orrin Feldman? Barbara Walker?
Whitkin.
And Bill Chin.
Thank you. I'm Orrin Feldman. I'm a board member of the Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council, former vice president and land use chair. Rise in support of Renee and council member Tom LaBonge's motion and hope that you will approve it. There have been numerous problems with our small lot subdivision proposals in our area. You've heard some of them. In addition, I would add that we've had problems with setbacks on the side yards and rear yards, even in multifamily homes, where privacy and other issues have been raised. We've had numerous problems with developers who don't want to provide at least 2 ways out for people in the event of a fire. We've had serious problems with garbage collection, with access for residential services, including the U.S. Postal Service and contractors, whether it's TV technicians or anyone else. There isn't enough parking spaces. There needs to be more in these arrangements. People need to be able to service their homes in this day and age. Thank you.
Barbara?
Hi, my name is Barbara Whitkin. I'm Area 7 Chair of Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council, but today I'm here on my own personal business. I want to discuss tearing down one existing single-family home on a 50-foot lot and replacing it with 4 houses, which has heavier uses in regard to plumbing, electricity, but that's not the only problem. It's the curb space, the parking, the egress, and one single-family house has a side yard and has landscaping. The small lot subdivisions do not. Front units with their garage along the street side also take away available parking, and there is no place to put trash bins because you can't block the driveways. Lack of parking for the U.S. mail and service vehicles is very important too. And rooftop decks are loud and intrude on the privacy of surrounding neighbors' homes and yards.
Bill Chen.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Chen. I reside in Chinatown's Echo Park, owner and manager of properties in both communities. I like to add to the amendment that rooftop dog houses, which are stairway penthouse, be omitted from any of the future small lot subdivisions. They're unsightly. They provide no architectural feature like an A-frame roof. Dog houses are just those stairways, and it's just a geometrical shape. Also, I have problems, and I think that infill on single lots are okay, but when you have multiple lots and it adds additional density beyond those individual lots totally added together, they create a problem as well. Thirdly, I think the floor area ratio should be looked at for small lot subdivision and reduced.
Okay. Thank you. Doug Tornquist. Joe Farrell. And David Moden.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Thank you to Tom LaBonge's office for proposing this motion. Due to its nonspecific language and incomplete nature, the ordinance has robbed neighborhoods of their character by replacing existing housing stock, often rent-controlled apartments, with small lot projects. The net gain for neighborhood stakeholders and the City of Los Angeles is negligible. To replace properties which are right-sized, characteristic, and sometimes even historic with spec housing that is out of character and often cheaply built is short-sighted. I urge this committee to take advantage of this opportunity to listen to those most affected by the Small Lot Ordinance, the residents of the City of Los Angeles, and not the developers. There must be private trash pickup. Developments must not be oriented towards neighboring properties. Rooftop decks should be discouraged. Setback requirements must be observed. And variances must not be granted as a matter of course and without serious consideration. The zoning laws must work to protect stakeholders and residents by at least as much as they favor developers. I urge your support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Farrell.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Joe Farrell. I'm a representative of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council and a concerned stakeholder of Silver Lake. I support Tom LaBonge's motion to update and revise the small lot subdivision ordinance. During my time on the Neighborhood Council, I have seen numerous small lot subdivision developments come before us, each met with serious opposition from the surrounding neighbors and community. The number one complaint is that they do not fit into the character of the neighborhood and that the massing, height, and density of these projects are extremely obtrusive in relation to the surrounding structures. I come before you today to express my concerns of my constituents and the concerns of my fellow Silver Lakers. Currently, the small lot subdivision guidelines are not enforceable. They're merely suggestions at the discretion of developers. I urge this committee to take a serious stance on the small lot subdivision ordinance and make the guidelines enforceable so that the City of Los Angeles is accountable for the decisions regarding small lot developments. Because right now, the small lot subdivision guidelines are nothing more than a paperweight, a loosely bound set of suggestions that hold no weight and provide no incentive to follow. And some of the concerns to address the compatibility with neighborhoods, I suggest added in the following: requiring 15-foot front setbacks on all projects, restricting the height in relation to surrounding properties, requiring private trash collection, not allowing homes to be oriented toward neighboring properties, limiting rooftop decks to only middle units, and applying the same rules as far as apartment buildings, like increased setbacks with increased height, mandatory open space, guest parking, common trash collection, and common area pickup, and turning the guidelines related to massing and setbacks into enforceable rules. Thank you.
Thank you. David? You get the final word.
Good afternoon. I support the motion. I agree with everything that's been said so far, and I don't want to take your time by repeating any of it, but I would like to implore you to prioritize fixing this ordinance and hopefully keep from approving any more of these projects in the meantime so as to not create any more problems for our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. We're going to refer to staff and send to council. You snuck these in on me?
Yeah.
Teresa?
No. Hi, I'm Lynn Brown.
Ann.
Yes, I came here to speak on a completely different issue, but this is really close to my heart, and I jumped up to put a speaker card in. I live over in Hollywood, where we have wonderful areas. One is called Spalding Square. The other where we have beautiful neighborhoods of craftsman houses. Recently, a small lot was bulldozed completely. A mega mansion is being built, including the third-store garden. It's built right to the edge. It's hideous. I want to thank Tom LaBonge for putting this forward to us all. This is a hideous tendency, and it's destroying neighborhoods and will continue. So I urge you to act quickly, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. We have Teresa.
Hi, my name is Teresa Shibuya, and I'm a property owner. And many of the things that I'll be saying will be repeated, but as you already know, many of the residents are very unhappy with the subdivisions that have already been completed. So I'm hoping that this motion is passed and is passed quickly, and we can put a restriction on the height of these subdivisions so they're relative to the properties that are already existing in the neighborhood, restricting the number of units so it's relative to the density of the neighborhood, eliminating the rooftop decks, just to provide more, which will provide more privacy to the existing buildings, requiring setbacks and green space, requiring guest parking, requiring maintenance on common matters such as trash pickup, and common areas as maintaining the driveways, requiring compatible look for the area, and requiring that these rules are enforceable and not just guidelines.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's a consensus or a chorus on all those matters, and I think the council member has heard that. So we're going to refer to staff on consent.
I've got.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. On one change, if we could, amend it just to add that we ask the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst to prepare a fiscal impact analysis on the cost. So it comes back to council with that. It doesn't have to come back here to move it on to council, but ask the CLA to prepare that.
Renee?
On item 4?
Yes.
You want a fiscal impact statement as to
the cost?
As to the cost of
implementing?
Of implementing, okay. I'll work with the CAO's office on that as well. Oh, okay.
Just wanted to ask if we could have a time period of 30 days or 45 days for it to come back. Otherwise, it'll just go and disappear.
Come back where?
To come back to Plum with the amendments so that you can adopt them.
The intention is to send it straight to council.
So if I may, normally we would report back on the items that have been proposed and the staffing and the resources required to carry them out. As you guys are well aware, we don't have general fund staff in the department that are not without a current assignments. So it's something would have to be lifted off our work program, such as the community plan update, our rezoning of the entire city. So we normally would come back with a fiscal impact analysis describing the resources needed to carry out what is a very laudable cause to update an ordinance. And then if the council chooses to fund that or find another way to help the department have the resources to carry it out, then we can move forward with that. But normally the department would report back on what it would take to accomplish that, what type of outreach we would do. It's a citywide effort. Citywide ordinance is not something that's very small in nature, although I think could have an impact on the entire city. So we want a chance to let the council know what resources would be needed to carry out such a work program.
You want to bifurcate that? You want to bifurcate that?
Well, no, I don't. I think we can move it to council. So, yeah, this was my thinking. That staff is overloaded in the planning department, but we have a general manager who can actually do all this work on the weekend. And
I would vote for that.
let me ask, does everybody agree that he's capable, right? Actually, all kidding aside, I think we ought to just move it to council because all we're doing is instructing the department and the city attorney to draft the ordinances. Those will come back to committee, but there's no reason to hold this up. Those amendments have been Well, include the amendments, send it to council,
Perfect.
ask the city attorney to start drafting this, we can move it and not, so I would suggest we don't even, just move the whole thing together to council. It's just an instruction asking them to do something. They won't do anything unless the council instructs, which, that's understood. And then it'll come back here so we can spend the time on it.
Just so you're aware, any amendments, the municipal code have to go through the planning commission, the full public hearing process. So we wouldn't actually be working on amendments, but we would work on a work program that what it would take to carry out those amendments,
Right.
present that to council, and if council is able to find a way to have the department have the resources to do that, we'd be more than happy to carry that out swiftly.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
So we'd move it all to council.
Thank
That's
you
what I
very
would
much,
suggest.
Council.
Okay, great. So we're moving it all to council.
Just to clarify, so this item will be moved to council along with a request to the CAO and CLA to prepare a fiscal impact statement on the cost of implementing.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to hold this for now or indefinitely? We'll come back to it right after. Okay, got it. Why? How many cars are there? You want to just go through? The cars don't go away. Okay, go on. Okay. Item number 5. We've got cards on item number 5. You're all welcome to speak. Small lot subdivision ordinance early start. Our inclination is to approve on consent and send to full council, but we'd be happy to hear from everybody. So we can start with Doug Arsenault. Doug Haynes can return, and Bruce Cooper, at your pleasure.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Arsenault of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing more than 400 major employers of over 500,000 Angelinos. VICA strongly supports this proposed amendment to enhance the development process of dearly needed townhouse-style single-family homes and provide the benefits of quality of life to young professionals and working families. Improving this ordinance will help them live in the city and attract additional permanent residents who will grow their business and families in LA. The current requirement for developers to wait on the tract map to be recorded can take up to 3 years. During this time, these lots are left vacant and open to blight, while building trade professionals and hopeful home buyers are left waiting on bureaucracy. The proposed revision simply allows the issuance of permits to applicants once the city has thoroughly vetted and approved the project. To ensure compliance for the developer, applicant must sign an agreement that the certificate of occupancy won't be issued until the final map is recorded. It's worth noting the amendment does not alter what is physically allowed or where it can be built or to the noticing requirements for application. Simply eliminates a needless paper exercise. This change prudently establishes a balance between private and public interests. Adopting this revised ordinance advances in the intent of the original small lot subdivision ordinance to increase the diversity of housing stock in a by-right manner. We urge the council to move this proposal without delay. Thank you.
Doug Haynes.
Hi, my name's Doug Haynes. Really all this does is it cuts out the community in the process, and that seems to be the intent. You've certainly got a lot of blowback from the community about the problems of small lot subdivisions. To eliminate the ability to have a variance appeal is really what we're talking about. There is no inhibition on developers to go forward right now with beginning construction as long as they go through the advisory agency's appeal hearing on the subdivision and then the variance appeal. You're eliminating the opportunity for the variance, which is then eliminating the opportunity to come to your council member because there's a second level for variance appeal, but there's no second level for an advisory agency appeal. There's also no teeth to an advisory agency appeal. There's nothing that you really contest in an advisory agency appeal. So that's what it's all about. You're eliminating the opportunity for the public to come to their councilmen and express their concerns. So what people will do is just do CEQA appeals, which they can do, and it accomplishes nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Good afternoon, honorable council members. Good afternoon again. Bruce Kuiper. I urge you to recommend that the City Council vote not to adopt this proposed ordinance because it violates the city charter and would therefore be invalid. Subdivided lots do not exist until the final map is recorded. Zoning variances are therefore required before the final map is recorded, but the proposed ordinance would allow the Department of Building and Safety to issue permits for the construction of projects that violate the zoning codes without variances before the subdivided lots exist. The Planning Department's Deputy Director, Lisa Weber, admitted at the Planning Commission's December 19 hearing that the proposed ordinance gives the Department of Building and Safety, quote, the ability to avoid all of these variances, end quote. Charter Section 562C requires that 5 separate findings shall be made before a variance may be granted. The proposed ordinance clearly violates that section of the Charter and would therefore be invalid. I also find it interesting that the Planning Department initiated this, but they don't have the resources to implement Mr. Labange's motion, item 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nicole? Gail and, no, I'm sorry, Ezra Gale, Tracy Stone, and Don Hunt. And one more. Dribs and Drabs, and Esther.
Hello again. The Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council strongly opposes this motion. With all due respect to the Planning Department wanting to streamline some of the paperwork and so forth that needs to be doing, this will be done at the disregard for the neighborhood. I think the developers who want to do small lot subdivision ordinance need to go through the same procedure for lot division as anybody else, and to fast track them will be a detriment to the constituents. Please oppose this motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, council members. My name's Ezra. I'm with the Central City Association. We represent 450 businesses and over 350,000 employees throughout the Los Angeles area. CCA strongly supports the small lot subdivision ordinance and appreciates staff's proposed changes to it. The ordinance is an innovative zoning tool that allows development on urban infill lots with commercial or multifamily residential zoning. In fact, in most cases, the density of a small lot subdivision is much less than what an apartment or condominium developer could build on that site. The ordinance was originally conceived to address housing affordability by bridging the gap between single-family residences and multifamily units and creating a new method of supporting fee simple ownership throughout Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the current provisions actually add to development costs by delaying construction till after a final map recordation or by requiring additional entitlements. Staff's changes allow the construction to commence prior to the recordation, and for this reason and the certainty that it brings to the building process, CCA strongly supports the changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Hunt is next.
Sorry?
Just wanted to confirm I'm next. Don Hunt?
Well, you're there, so go ahead.
Okay.
We got two more, though. We got Tracy and Esther, but go ahead, Don.
Okay. I'm Don Hunt with the South Hollywood Neighborhood Association. We strongly oppose this change. You know, it is kind of a silly process to go through in a sense. However, the Small Lot Subdivision Act right now is allowing developers to create some really, really lousy projects. And until you fix the Small Lot Subdivision Act itself, as we talked about in the last agenda item, there's really to allow developers to have an early start and to take away this process that actually allows neighborhood associations and neighborhood councils to negotiate with the developers. This is one of the tools, as inefficient and maybe inappropriate as it is, it's one of the tools that we are able to use, and until you fix the Small Lot Subdivision Act, you shouldn't change this. Thank you.
Tracy Stone?
Hello, thank you for allowing me to address the committee. I just wanted to speak in support of this proposed amendment. I am an architect and I do work on small lot projects. And I know that the committee is aware, but maybe some of the public is not, that the variance is not a requirement of the small lot subdivision process. It is simply discretionary if the applicant wishes to speed things up. And it does increase development costs and therefore increases the final cost of the product. So I urge you to move this forward. Obviously, once a variance is always approved, then it sort of doesn't make sense to continue to require people to have a variance. It seems like it should be a by right option. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Esther?
Yes, hi, I'm Esther Eisenstein, representing 28 tenants who are having the subdivision, and I feel the council has always made a measured and valued response to their different proposals, and I don't think anything really comes of doing anything in a hurried way. And I think especially since so many people have been here and many people couldn't be here to speak on this matter, I think a measured response is necessary, and I don't think early start should be approved. I'm against this proposal. Thank you.
Bill Chen.
Hi, Bill Chen. I'm opposed to the early start. There's community plans that are in place that doesn't get a chance to articulate its guidelines and designs on small lot subdivisions to begin with, and to have an early start, there's no review. There's very little public hearing input on small lot subdivisions, let alone giving developers an early start with the minimum amount of blueprint and the minimum amount of information for feedback is absurd. Thank you.
Okay. Tricia?
Good afternoon, Tricia Robbins-Casson here on behalf of myself. I've seen many very attractive small lot projects. I agree with this motion. I do hope you support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Englander.
Can we just ask staff to come up? There's been a lot of comments and concerns. I got some other additional calls on this in the office as well, just to ensure that it doesn't violate the charter, somebody said, that it doesn't circumvent the process, and just address what a lot of the speakers had brought up.
Absolutely.
'Cause I've been told completely the opposite from planning department, building and safety, that this doesn't do any of that. So just want to sift through fear and uncertainty and doubt.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. My name is Deborah Cahan. I'm with the Planning Department. I would like to address some of the comments that we heard. For one, the legality has been called to question. This has actually been... The last time that we were here before Plum was on April 29, 2014. And since that time, between then and today, this has gone through form and legality with the City Attorney's Office. We've been working closely with them from the onset and the development of this ordinance. There is a mechanism in this ordinance that requires the map to be recorded before a certificate of occupancy is issued. Therefore, none of these structures could be occupied without those lot lines being technically drawn. Therefore, they would be a subdivision before they would be occupied. Therefore, there wouldn't be any conflict of legality in that sense. I'd also like to address some of the other comments, if I may. We've heard the word fast track, but I would like to emphasize that this is actually bringing the small lot process on par with what condominiums experience today in their process. It's not actually fast tracking it. It's not removing any of the public process. It is not It is not adding any development right. It is not changing anything from the way that it is today, except for removing a procedural inefficiency that happens after the entire planning review down the line. So all it does is it removes this period of wait time that happens after the planning department has gone through its process and the construction can begin on a project. So I would also like to emphasize that we have also heard a lot of support, and we have heard concerns. There is a lot of support that isn't here today, but as far as the concerns go, I think that with the prior motion that was heard earlier, that would be an appropriate vessel and avenue to look comprehensively at this at the small lot regulations. And for the time being, this process would remove a very particular and minor wrinkle experienced during small lot development experience today. But as I said, it wouldn't change the way that anything happens today, except removes a variance that would otherwise not be required for any other project.
And then if you could, just for additional clarification, and I mean, I already researched it, I know the answers, but we've gotten calls from folks in the equestrian community as well, that we could possibly lose additional under small lot equestrian properties. It's not the case, but if you can articulate that and share that as well, where could this be used, and not just this particular mechanism to speed up that time frame, but also just small lot in general, and on this and the previous item, where, in what situations would that occur?
So I know we're going to be hearing a little bit about equine later today. I'll just see if staff is here to speak on equine. Okay, all right. Would you like to hear about that now, or would you like to wait until that specific topic is agendized for later as well, equine in general? I understand you're speaking equine to small lot, but...
Well, I'm just speaking specifically on small lot.
Okay.
We can do a deeper dive on the equine issues and the setbacks later on that, because I know that's a different item.
Do you feel...
Let's just make it simple, and like, what zones can you do a small lot in now?
Oh, sure. So small lot
walk us through
subdivisions,
where you would see
absolutely,
small lot.
absolutely. So small lot subdivisions are only allowed in multifamily zones. So if a land is zoned agricultural, it's not allowed in an agricultural zone. So the small lot must respect the underlying density that is within that zone. It may not exceed that. It may not exceed height. It may not exceed anything that is already embedded within the zone it is being developed upon. So if equine keeping is allowed in the agricultural zones, small lot would not be allowed by right on an agricultural parcel because it is not zoned multifamily.
Clear? Thank you. David, is it Hayden or Moden? Moden?
Good afternoon again. I'm glad that Ms. Kane actually brought up a comparison between the small lots and the apartment buildings. And for example, when you build an apartment building, if you want to go beyond a certain height, you have to provide more setback. But for some reason, that's not the case for a small lot subdivision. If you build an apartment building or a condominium, you have to also provide some guest parking. That's also not the case for a small lot subdivision. And you also have to provide some open space for the community that resides in this complex, and that's also not the case for the small lot subdivision. So I find it concerning that the small lot ordinance has all these inherent problems associated with it that obviously a lot of residents throughout Los Angeles have expressed their opinions on. And so I would urge you to fix the ordinance before you address any of the other obstacles that small lot subdivisions may encounter. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're good. Approve on consent, send to full council. Item number 8, Echo Park Height District Change Ordinance. We want to,
Item 6, Councilman, you're skipping that, right? You're going to number 8?
8.
Okay. 8, I believe there was a request for a continuance for that item, Councilman.
well, we're going to amend it.
Okay.
Okay?
And amend it.
Right. Ready? Yes, please.
Item number 8, the amendment is to instruct the Department of City Planning to remove the following geographical boundaries from the proposed height district change ordinance and prepare a revised map as follows. Remove the properties bounded by Sunset Boulevard, Lavetta Terrace, and Laguna Avenue.
Now we'll continue it. Now we will continue the matter until after the council recess to allow city planning staff to incorporate the amendment.
It'll be continued, Councilman, to incorporate those changes.
Yes.
It'll be continued to incorporate those changes.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. I've got item number 9. We have cards? No cards on number 9. We have a motion to approve on consent. Mr. Englander? So moved. Item number 10, no cards, and we have a motion to approve on consent. Mr. Englander?
Without objection.
Okay. Item 11, approve on consent. Mr. Englander, without objection. No cards. No cards on 12. Motion on consent. Approved without objection. Item 13. No cards. Move on consent without objection. Moved on consent. Okay. Now we have appointments, items 1 and 2. Item number 1, Mr. Barry Milofsky, appointment to the Cultural Heritage Commission. Mr. Barry, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Barry Milofsky. I've been a resident of Los Angeles, practicing architect for 30 years. About 50% of our practice is in historic preservation. I've worked with the city in many capacities before. I've worked on the CD13 Design Review Committee, excuse me, with the last 3 council members. I was on the peer review panel for the Adaptive Reuse Ordinance downtown, and still on the Mayor's Design Advisory Committee. I've also been on the board of the Los Angeles Conservancy and the board of Hollywood Heritage. It's an honor to be considered for this position. I think preservation is important in maintaining the history of the city and defining who we are and how this city emerged into the international icon it has become. I also think preservation is important to two of the economic drivers of Los Angeles, cultural tourism and the entertainment industry, both of which rely heavily on preservation of our heritage. I look forward to working with staff, if confirmed, and in maintaining the history and heritage of the city.
Thank you.
Questions?
Do we have any cards? Nope. Mr. Questions, Mr. Englander? Nope. Congratulations. We're very excited to have you join us, and we look forward to working with you. And this goes to full council, right?
Great. Thank you very much.
This will go on July 22nd, 29th.
Okay, congratulations. Next is Michael Gazzano, appointee to the West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission. You want him first or the cards first? Welcome.
Thank you. Like you said, my name is Michael Gazzano, resident of the City of Los Angeles and reside in Council District 11. As it relates, my background in planning and land use started in undergrad at USC with a bachelor's degree in urban planning. Also in civil engineering, worked for the CAS and Forecast as a research assistant, looking at various markets in Southern California. I also worked for as a project engineer for a general contractor building theme park attractions and hotels down in Anaheim. I also worked for the Walt Disney Company in their corporate real estate group as a portfolio analyst, so more on the economic side, quantitative analysis on strategic planning for their large global portfolio, about 20 million square feet in 45 countries, various product types. Went back to graduate school at USC for the Master of Real Estate Development program in the Price School of Public Policy, where I still serve on the board of directors for the school as well and chair their community involvement and engagement days of service. And upon graduation, I worked for a developer here in LA, Crusoe affiliated, managing a number of projects throughout Southern California, from San Diego, Santa Barbara, and here in LA itself.
Thank you. We have cards. Okay. Any questions, Mr. Englander?
No questions, just a comment and observation. So, yeah, and I looked through your bio as well. Pretty impressive. That's quite an elevator speech, right off the cuff. That's good.
Thank you.
That wasn't learned at the Price School or the School of Real Estate. That was the Crusoe School of...
Maybe a combination of all three.
Of welcomes, yeah. No, it'd be a great addition. No, thank you.
Thank you.
Same here. I'm interested in what your thoughts are on bringing your private sector experience to a planning commission.
I think it's really important. I think to have a cross section of both, as it relates to any land use matters, is really important. But also kind of having the same understanding from the public sector side, from the School of Public Policy, it will be beneficial, and I'm excited.
Great. Anyway, welcome and congratulations. We'll move this forward. But before that, we want to hear from Nicole Miner. Last call, Nicole Miner. Okay. Michael, thank you very much and congratulations. We're going to move this forward. What's left before us is item 6, the Rio Ordinance or the Rio District.
Good afternoon, Councilman Claire Bowen from the Department of City Planning. So I was here in January, and you had the opportunity to extend us 90 days so we could go out and have conversations with the community. And so I'm happy to share with you today some of the changes we've made during that time. Most notably, we've cleared up or clarified some of the landscaping requirements, particularly to make sure that people were very clear that any existing or landscaping did not need to be removed. And so it was really all of these landscaping requirements really only applied to absolutely new landscaping. We also condensed the landscaping requirements so that all the all of the properties within the Rio had the same landscaping requirements. Before we had kind of differentiated, and so now it's all the same. So it's really all about kind of streamlining the process. We also changed the term from river design standards to river design guidelines, and that was again just to clarify really what the intent of the river design guidelines are that could be adopted by City Planning Commission subsequent to the development or the adoption of the supplemental use district. We also eliminated the very small portions of NBC Universal and the Cornfield Arroyo Seco specific plan from the Rio because those documents both have all the Rio standards already kind of embedded in them. We were trying to, again, avoid duplication. And there's another change that's been brought to you today that I think you had a new ordinance distributed today, and that was basically to remove language that prohibited assigned districts, and that language has now been removed. That's kind of the change that's in front of you today. And with that, if you have any other questions. I also wanted to just thank the councilman for organizing a community meeting we had about a few weeks ago. That was a wonderful opportunity, I think, for neighborhood councils and other concerned individuals around the entire length of the LA River to come and learn more about the Rio. So thank you.
It was an excellent meeting, wasn't it?
Right. Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, boy. Okay, it's a full deck here. So speaker cards. Ready? Kelly O'Rourke. In lieu of Cesar Diaz from Councilmember Bob Blumenfield.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Kelly O'Rourke, and I'm here from the office of Councilmember Bob Blumenfield. And on behalf of Councilmember Blumenfield, I speak in support of the Rio Overlay District, including suggested technical changes. Councilmember Blumenfield would also like to extend his sincere thanks to the staff for their Herculean efforts with this project, and would especially like to thank and highlight the work of Ms. Claire Bowen and her team. Thank you for moving this item forward.
Thank you. Mr. Edward Morrissey. Okay. Alex Ventura. And Andrea Ventura is next, and Mr. Garfinkel after that. Alex.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Alex Ventura. I'm a member of Atwater Village Neighborhood Council. I'm the North Atwater rep, and I'm also the vice president of Atwater Village Chamber of Commerce. The Atwater Village is asking to be removed from the LA Rio. The Atwater Village Neighborhood Council passed a committee impact statement for this item in March, and last night we held a special meeting where we passed this resolution that you should have before you in a packet. In that packet, you also have a letter from the Chamber of Commerce and from the Atwater Village Resident Association, also supporting our resolution. That is not in the committee file for some reason, or not in the file online. I don't know. I sent them in, but those two pieces of paper aren't there. The Atwater Village. We feel that a precedent has been set for removal from the Rio, as NBC Universal had their attorney remove them from the Rio, and Atwater Village simply asked to be treated the same way.
Got it. Thank you. Andrea Ventura.
Good afternoon. I'm just here as an Atwater Village resident and as an attorney. I reviewed this ordinance, the latest draft, and there are serious problems with the vagueness of it, the discretion that it provides, and the fact that it doesn't delineate what the river design guidelines are prior to passing the law. So if you pass a law and then you set the guidelines that are, how does anybody know what they're going to do is going to be in violation of the law? I find that is just a blatant undefinition of the law. There's many other issues, but I won't waste your time unless you would like me to go through each and every section. Second, I just want to reiterate what the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council discussed for several hours and made the resolution that they should be removed from the boundaries in order to allow themselves to vote within the boundaries as overlay districts are allowed to do. NBC Universal's been removed. I don't understand why Atwater Village cannot be removed, and then the Rio can pass as you wish, and then Atwater can review the law and understand it better before becoming a part of it and being subject to a better definition of the law once the guidelines are passed. And lastly, there are also concerns that my colleagues have raised some severe concerns of Brown Act violations by the City Council's agent, the Los Angeles River Revitalization Corporation, and that they have not been resolved. So if you go ahead, the corporation is supposed to implement this ordinance. So there's a lot of legal issues that have been unresolved here, and so passing it today and tomorrow to the City Council for a vote is, I think, premature. Thank you.
Thank you. Point. David Garfinkel.
I'm David Garfinkel, president of the Tarzana Property Owners Association. We're strong supporters of efforts to improve the LA River, and as noted in the handout I've provided to you and what was put on the web, we are very appreciative of the changes that were made from the early this year version, particularly the changes in excessive requirements having to do with landscaping materials. We have some reservations on, or minor reservations on, two of the proposals. One has to do simply with the size of the proposed Rio. It stretches the whole length of the river. Individual overlay ordinances are normally much smaller, and you've heard NBC Universal is out. You've heard Atwater Village wants out. I think we need to look at parsing this into areas that are specific to regions that have specific concerns. The second has to do with the width of the boundary. My letter has a map attached to it which shows some places in Tarzana the width is about 3/4 of a mile, certainly beyond anything that has to do with the residents having to do with the river or the river having to do with the residents, and it shows our proposed changes to those boundaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ronald Ziff. Teresa Robbins after, and Maria Camacho after.
I'm Ron Ziff, Vice President of Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. We support the Rio ordinance. However, there is one glaring omission from the ordinance. The largest landowner along the entire length of the river is the city itself, with parks, golf courses, and other facilities. Because the landscaping requirements are only triggered by major projects, it's unlikely that city-managed land will ever be re-landscaped. We request that the city have a written policy that all replacement plant materials be from the Rio-approved list. Then when a tree dies or a bush has to be replaced, it would be replaced with something that is water-friendly, that is animal-friendly, and friendly to the environment. And we could leave our next generation with a thoughtful legacy and do it without spending a single penny of taxpayer money.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Tricia Robbins Casson on behalf of the Warner Center Association and the Warner Center 2035 Plan Citizens Advisory Committee. With the technical changes that have been introduced today, I would like to support this moving forward on behalf of both of those entities. And then on a personal note, it thrills me to see this moving forward and these pieces dropping into place that would allow the city to go ahead and realize the vision of the Los Angeles River Master Plan. They recently opened a river walk in Sherman Oaks / Studio City just this last weekend, and I had the opportunity to walk along it. Actually, it was the weekend before. And it is beautiful. It is sustainable. It uses California natives, and I am really looking forward to when all of these projects have been implemented and the city has a very beautiful park, like linear park atmosphere to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Camacho.
Good afternoon, Councilman Englander and Councilman Cedillo. My name is Maria Camacho of the LA River Revitalization Corporation. I'm here to support the establishment of a new supplemental use district called the Los Angeles Rio River Improvement Overlay and the First Rio District for the LA River. The enabling ordinance and the First District are not only proposed by the LA River Revitalization Master Plan, but they are excellent mechanisms to ensure the health of the LA River watershed. The LA River Corp sees the supplemental use district and resulting Rio District as tools that will help, one, make connections from river-adjacent property to river parks and greenways, two, support native habitat, and three, promote pedestrian and bicycle access to the river. So what is in front of you today, the Rio and the First Rio District, will result in the establishment of a distinct, sustainable environment in the river surrounding neighborhoods. It's vital that you support the Rio Ordinance to enable the city to better coordinate land use development all along the city's 32-mile corridor of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Cesar Diaz. Tracy Stone. Stephen Appleton.
Hello again. My name is Tracy Stone. I'm a property owner and business owner in Elysian Valley along the river, and I think fall within the Rio area. And I'm definitely in support of this. I think it's wonderful to see an ordinance that promotes a greenway and promotes access to the river. So in every way, I think this is a great move. I would ask, however, that the committee direct the planning department in the development of the guidelines to be very clear about what it means to be a certain number of feet from the river. I know in our neighborhood, we have easements, we have properties that extend into the river, we have various property lines and all kinds of things that need clarification. So I don't think it's any problem with this amendment, but I think as it goes forward to city planning, it would be important to really clearly define what the river is. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Appleton.
Hello, committee members. I'm also here to support the Rio Plan. I'm the Elysian Valley Riverside Neighborhood Council President, but I'm speaking on my own behalf. I will raise one issue, and I think in general it begs the question about how the guidelines are developed. So for instance, and I know the council member has had concerns about emergency vehicle access along the pathway. There are areas within Elysian Valley where you have properties that are flag lots or lots that have very deep connection up to 300 or 400 feet from a public street. To have a prescription of, say, a 3'6" fence in that condition, until which time the matter of public access is best addressed, how emergency vehicles access the path, I think is a concern. In some of those properties, we're looking at more than a mile before an emergency vehicle could access the path. So I'm very much in support of these guidelines, but I'd ask some clarification on whether that sort of issue can be attended to in the generation of the guidelines, and would ask that you do look at it for certain kinds of businesses. That might be a security issue that is premature with a 3'6" fence. And I'm just going to give a little diagram to all on the committee that you can.
Thank you. Stephen, thank you very much. We're going to ask the staff to come up and address that concern and some of the other concerns that were raised.
Hi, Claire Bowen, City Planning. So I thought I'd just address a couple of the concerns I heard today. One was just to clarify that the reason that we felt comfortable removing the small portions of NBC Universal that were originally in the ordinance is that they have a development agreement with the city that basically requires them to fulfill the same standards that are already in the Rio. So they're already kind of fulfilling the commitments of the Rio. The second was there was a concern that the River Corporation was actually going to have oversight of the Rio, and I just wanted to clarify that that's not true. The River Corporation is a nonprofit. They have no relationship to overseeing the Rio in terms of deciding whether a project has met the Rio or not. The second one was just to clarify the reference to the guidelines in terms of how they will get adopted. So what you're looking at today is establishing a supplemental use district. Basically, it's an enabling district that includes a very small number of standards that all projects will be required to do. And then you're also adopting the first of those supplemental use districts, which is for the LA River. What the supplemental use district also does, in addition to those standards, because it was felt that they're a very small set and they're meant to cover a large range of use types. But what the supplemental use district allows is through a separate outreach process and public engagement process for there to be the development of additional design guidelines that discretionary projects would be subject to. Those would have to go through, again, their own outreach, their own public outreach and engagement, and then those would have to get adopted by the City Planning Commission. So there will be a process for the community to be able to be engaged with us, determining what is the appropriate level of guidelines. We can then tailor those to specific uses. So I just wanted to kind of affirm for folks that the guidelines won't just kind of be adopted tomorrow, that there really will be a very healthy public engagement process for those. The only thing that's included today are the design standards that are embedded in the actual real supplemental use district, which has to do with design, with the fence heights, fence design immediately abutting the river, landscaping, and some screening and some light screening.
You feel a need to talk more specifically about the concerns that were raised by Mr. Appleton?
He mentioned about the fence. The only fence requirements there are would be in front of private property. So I'm not sure how that would have any impact on emergency vehicles getting down to the actual river itself. Those emergency vehicles would enter the same way they do today at public access points, and the fence requirements wouldn't have any impact on those. The only thing we're trying to do with the fence design standards is if you look along the river today or any of the river channels we have, there's a very hodgepodge of fence styles. There's 20-foot hedges, there are chain links, there's bamboo. It's not particularly an attractive lineage of a fence, and the idea is that the county, when developing or adopting their master plan a number of years ago, created landscape design guidelines which include these fence design styles, and that's what's being used by the city and other entities doing fences along there. So the idea was that to be able to, as developments occur, and if they're going to be putting a fence up of any kind, they follow the same design standards. So you start to create a consistent kind of look. If you're walking along, if you're enjoying the river path, you want to be able to have a consistent look. And this still allows for a lot of flexibility, so architects still have some design kind of their own they can imprint on there, but it does have specific standards in terms of kind of transparency and height and kind of the width of the vertical standards.
Mr. Englander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, I think you answered most of the questions, although I wasn't totally comfortable with, and I like the idea of the contiguous design, and I think there's some great positive aspects of that. But on the public safety element of it, and ensuring that, well, it's the same way they access it now. I don't know, quite frankly, if they would request changing what they have now. So I would ask if it would be possible to get the fire department to actually weigh in on this. I think it was a good point that was brought up, and ask them to at least have a seat at the table or share their opinion on access for emergency vehicles.
Well, I guess I'm confused about as to what the only thing in the supplemental use district about fences has to do with if a new project is coming along and to the extent of their private property, if they're going to put a fence up, that the fence be of a certain design type. So I'm not quite sure why emergency vehicles are entering into that conversation.
If you look at like the handout, for example, that was passed out here, it has, it shows that if a fence were put up throughout the private properties, it could go as far as 6 blocks.
I haven't seen that handout, so it's...
So I would just ask, just to make sure that we're covered and we don't, there isn't an unintended consequence of this, that the fire department also weigh in on it. So I would ask, as a friendly amendment, that if we could ask the fire department to weigh in on this as well, just from a public safety perspective.
the reason it's 6 blocks? Is there a property that's that 6 blocks long?
I don't know. I don't know all the properties.
This isn't requiring a fence be covered for 6 blocks. I don't understand what.
Use the mic.
Sorry. If, for instance, you had a commercial business that had tables out and were serving, and utilized the front yard as the river pathway for the purposes of setback, they could be required to have a 3'6" fence at this time. My concern is that that may not be sufficient for that sort of business in light of the fact that at the current time that business could be as far as a mile or more away from emergency vehicle access to that pathway. The larger issue is that the pathway at the time doesn't define that access sufficiently, and those lots in many cases may be flag lots removed from perpendicular streets. So that's the concern.
I understand what you're
flexibility.
saying. I got it. Thank you. Yeah, that's really a stretch, I think, from that perspective, and I understand that. My actual concern is a little different than that, because they would run into that same situation now if they had an issue at their business.
Right, and there's not a requirement that they
no
put
different.
a fence.
What happens, though, if there are fences along a corridor that are multiple properties and then it becomes one contiguous fence? Is that possible?
There are multiple properties today that abut the river, and
Right.
there are continuous fences. They're not all the same style.
Right, so...
Right, because those properties today don't
And many of
allow
them have different breaks and different opportunities for access. My point is that if we, under the redesign element, if it all becomes one long fence, if you will, if an entire block decided to get together and apply not only design elements, but just do one contiguous fence, what then?
So one of the things that is included in the Rio is a requirement that each property provide access from their property to the river. They're not required to make it public access, because it could be a multifamily, it could be a commercial industrial property.
Okay, so each property would have to have its own access point.
That's correct.
Okay, then that solves that problem.
Okay, great.
Okay, that's all I had to hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You know, we've had public comment, and then we've had a response from the staff, and now we're going to have another public comment. I'm being very generous today. Please.
Helena Salamajo, Atwater resident and live near the river. I'm very concerned because I think you're passing things that we don't know what the guidelines are, the restrictions are, and the limitations are. And I know when I attended the meeting, the community meeting, your representative was saying, we'll control noise. This city built a park, promised us a noise barrier, a noise berm, a sound berm. Nothing from the office of Gary Lee Moore. She's saying less lighting. The police in Northeast District are saying more lighting on our street, not less, to deal with the gangs, to deal with the drug people, to do alcohol. I'm greatly concerned that none of these issues are of concern to you. Thank you.
Mr. Englander? Okay. Okay, let's go forward. We will approve and send to the full council. Okay.
And the enabling ordinance has been revised, Councilman, so that document is the one that will be adopted.
Yes. Okay. So moved. Consent, no objection. So the matter. Item number 7. We have cards.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Anita Cerner from the Department of City Planning.
On April 1st, Councilmember Fuentes introduced a motion regarding the preservation of equine keeping areas in the city. As you're fully aware, the city of Los Angeles has a long-standing tradition of equine keeping, particularly in the San Fernando Valley in communities such as Lakeview Terrace, Sylmar, and Chatsworth. However, over time, new and compatible development has resulted in a loss of valuable and irreplaceable equine keeping lots. In the city, there are numerous rules that govern equine keeping. For instance, the zoning code regulates the placement of equine structures on a lot and the distances between equine structures, enclosures, and habitable space located on both the equine keeping lot and adjacent lots. Included in your handout is an information bulletin put together by the Department of Building and Safety, which provides a general overview of the regulations that govern equine keeping. In response to the motion, the following short-term and long-term strategies to address equine keeping rights are recommended. The Department of City Planning, as well as with the Department of Building and Safety, and with input from the LA Equine Advisory Committee and residents of the Sherman Oaks neighborhood, we created a zoning information file in order to develop a uniform interpretation of existing requirements and clarify procedures. Currently, per the Municipal Code, Section 1222A19, the city shall not issue any building permit for a residential building that contains habitable space that is less than 35 feet from an equine use. The zoning information file outlines the required permit process and institutes a procedure to ensure that the creation of new habitable space does not inappropriately encroach upon equine keeping uses. The zoning information file further clarifies that no permit shall be issued by the Department of Building and Safety for any building that creates new habitable space on lots that are zoned A1, A2, RE20, RE40, RA lots, or any lot located within an equine keeping district, without completing what we're calling an equine keeping checklist form, which is attached and is Exhibit B of the staff report. The intent of this checklist is to provide building and safety with the necessary information to determine whether specific equine keeping regulations are applicable and to verify compliance with such requirements. The zoning information file also provides an interpretation of how to measure the existing distance requirements between the equine structure, enclosure, and that of habitable space. If we refer to the checklist in the back, for purposes of determining the distances between an equine structure enclosure, the habitable uses, the distance shall be measured from the structure, for example, a barn, or what we are calling the unsupervised enclosure where the equine is maintained. For example, it's called a corral area. Important to note that the zoning information file does not change the existing regulations that are in the code. The zoning information file, which includes a checklist form, can be uploaded onto the ZEMA's database, and that's where the properties will be flagged, and property owners and residents will be aware that this zoning information file is applicable to them. And this can be immediately uploaded onto ZEMA's and implemented by city staff. Part of the motion also requested the department to develop standards that would further protect equine keeping areas. While the zoning information file, the equine keeping checklist form, and the clarification of the distance requirements provide some protections in the short term, longer term solutions are necessary. The city is currently undertaking a project to rewrite the zoning code. This process provides an opportunity to make the necessary code amendments that will further clarify and safeguard equine keeping uses in the longer term. The planning department just recently released the zoning code evaluation report. It's attached as Exhibit C, which discusses in great detail the issues that the new zoning code aims to address. The code report identifies the need to retain the rural lifestyle as a key objective and recommends that existing provisions related to equine keeping be reviewed in order to more effectively retain the rural lifestyle in Los Angeles and provide for long-term viability of equine keeping. The Recode LA project provides the community with the opportunity to comprehensively modernize the city's approach to equine keeping. The
In conclusion, the department is recommending that the zoning information file, including the checklist form, the clarifications, move forward and that it be immediately implemented and uploaded onto SEMA's, and that the code amendments pertaining to equine keeping in the city continue to be studied as part of the recode LA process. Thank you. If you have any questions, I also invited Department of Building and Safety and our recode staff in case there was any questions. Thank you.
Great. Cards first? Yeah. Okay, David Garfinkel.
I've added another hat for this presentation. I'm also president of the Melody Acres Neighborhood Association, so I'm reporting for both that and the Tarzana Property Owners Association. Aaron, we are fully supportive of this city planning report, fully undermined 3 different ways. The only comment we have is we'd like to have non-K equine keeping areas explicitly included. As you read this, it seems to be strictly K districts, and Melody Acres is a semi-rural enclave in the valley with significant current, past, and projected future equine keeping, and we would like to be included in this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Noted. Thank you. Mary Kaufman.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'm here today representing the Chatsworth Neighborhood Council. We had filed a community impact statement which never got attached to the file, so I'm here to read it into the record. At the June 4th, 2014 General Board meeting of the Chatsworth Neighborhood Council, the board members voted 16 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions to support Council File 14-0389. Chatsworth is one of a few unique communities in the San Fernando Valley rich in equestrian heritage. Part of that heritage is having lots large enough to be able to have our horses in our backyards. Unfortunately, there are instances where rules and standards which would protect horsekeeping rights on large lots are being ignored, making some of the landowners who are in compliance with regulation for horsekeeping on their property suddenly become non-conforming.
Jill Haber.
Good afternoon. I'm the chair. I'm on the LA Equine Advisory Committee. I'm the subcommittee chairperson for planning land use. We've been working with Anita Cerna in planning on these issues. We've also been working with building and safety regarding the codes. We are requesting that the LA EAC and the city continue this review ahead of the Recode LA process to revise and or amend the codes for equine and animal keeping. In 2012, a motion was introduced, 12-0307, and it requested that we have input with building and safety regarding the codes. We are requesting that we continue to work with building and safety to revise and amend the codes that need to be worked on and made clear so there is no misinterpretation of the code by building and safety. We do not have the time to wait 5 years for Recode LA to organize the codes. Building is going forth and rapidly too many rights are being taken away. Regarding this motion, we understand that this was intended to protect animal and horse keeping rights, and that's what it's for, but it's also mostly intended regarding the non-conforming rights. Some of those issues are some of the codes that need to be taken out in order for this motion to really work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeannie Plum.
I'll address the material that you were sent, the actual material, and I'd like to point to especially page 2, where it talks about residentially zoned lots of 20,000 square feet or greater. I'd request that the planning department remember that prior to 1980 and Councilman Burson's revision of the code, the lots are still 17.5. And indeed, if this ordinance is, and work is designed to keep horse keeping on the smaller lots, could you please ask the planning department to add the 17.5, which is actually called out on the 12th district plan as 17,500 minimum RA. Let's not leave any loopholes that it is 20,000 or greater, although that is the standard now. The code has not been changed. In addition, I'd like to mention that on the report here, well, I have other concerns here. Working on the code in 1982, you can see that these are the codes that govern horse keeping. So it's going to take a lot more detailed work. I do have some other concerns. Perhaps I'll address them to the planning department. Thanks.
Thank you. That was Mary? Excuse me, you were Mary, correct? No, it's Jeannie. Okay, Mary. Come on up, Mary.
Hi, Mary Benson. I'm the
next is Claudia
Council District 6 representative for the Equine Advisory Committee. And as you've heard, agricultural zoning is the key to preserving horse keeping. In my community plan, Lakeview Terrace, Shadow Hills, East Latuna Canyon, the general plan recommends removing 85% of that agricultural zoning, making all of horse keeping practically in that area non-conforming. That agricultural zoning A1, A2, and RA is the key, and I would urge that this body extend the idea of putting this file forward and looking into that removal of agricultural zoning in my area. During our discussions with Planning and Building and Safety, there was a mechanism that was discussed that would cause a covenant or deed restriction to take a portion of that zoning and restrict it to agricultural use. I'd please like that to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia?
Hello, my name is Claudia Rodriguez. I'm with the Office of Councilmember Fuentes. I'm just here today to just state that we are in very much full support of the report with Planning Department. We are, along with Council District 12, we have one of the largest equine areas in our district, from Silmar all the way to Sunland, Tahunga. And so any small step, while it's not a 100% solution, it is a first step to having the agencies have more of a common interpretation of the current code language that is in the zoning code. Therefore, I asked that this committee adopt the report and allow Building and Safety and Planning to implement their solution immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Brown.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am the Vice President of the Los Angeles Equine Advisory Committee. Our President is out of the country working. However, the body of the LA Equine Advisory Committee has not been able to have a vote on this motion, so I am speaking for myself as an individual. I am fully support this motion. We want to thank Councilman Huizar and Councilman Fuentes, and want to thank Anita Serna for her hard work. The equestrian community is grateful for this motion and urge you to move this forward. We want to support and thank everyone who's been involved, and also to support the idea that, yes, this should be included for non-K inclusions as well. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Okay.
Anita Serna
Kelly
from...
O'Rourke?
Sorry.
Kelly. We got Kelly first.
Good afternoon, council members. On behalf of Councilmember Blumenfield, I'd like to express his thanks and support to Councilmember Fuentes for bringing this important issue before your esteemed committee today. The council member looks forward to seeing this issue move forward in a productive way. Councilmember Blumenfield would also like to commend and encourage the important community-first work that planning and DBS are doing with our Equestrian Advisory Committee towards protecting our vital equestrian assets, particularly in and around the San Fernando Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, come back.
Anita Cerner from the Department of, Building and Safety from Planning. Just wanted to make some clarifications with regards to the zoning information file. This zoning information file is actually applies to RA, RE20, RE40, A1, A2, as well as those within the equine keeping district. And also it's not subject to only 20,000 square feet. It doesn't state any minimum lot sizes. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. That's it. Mr. Englander?
Just a couple of quick comments on this. One, I was going to clarify that as well. And it actually, if you refer to the language, it says the availability of the equine keeping checklist form provided by the Department of Building and Safety, which will need to be completed anyone seeking new habitable space on a lot located whole or in part within the K district. But then it goes on to say and or any lot zoned RA, RE20. So it does not have to only be K. I'd also like to suggest that we make the change that was brought to our attention by Ms. Jeannie Plum. She is absolutely correct. I think that the report, it says here, it's stated on here, so I want to make it sure that it's reflective correctly. The report further indicates that many large lots, so 20,000 square feet or greater, which is in parentheses, particularly in the San Fernando Valley, have been subdivided into sizes that do not comply with the lot area requirements for equine keeping. While that doesn't change the outcome, because it doesn't refer to, as staff has said, doesn't refer to the sizes, I think the history needs to always be updated and correct as well, as Ms. Plum stated. So anytime somebody refers back or looks at something, it's documented correctly. So if we could amend it for the correct language and strike the 20,000, which is strictly a reference point, but nevertheless, it's better to have it correct and to say the 17.5. And that, with that, I would ask that we move this forward.
Good. Okay, so approve Planning Department recommendation, receive and file motion. No objection? Okay. So be it. Now we have general public comment. We have one card. Well, let's let somebody finish here. Doug. Did he leave? Doug Haynes? Oh, here you are. Doug's here.
Thank you very much.
Shh, can we have everybody please?
Doug Haynes for the East Hollywood Neighborhood Council, and I want to say something positive for a change. I've been coming here 5.5 years complaining about one marijuana dispensary in our community. Trying to get it shut down. I'm happy to say in 2 weeks it's going to be shut down, we're told. They've admitted it'll be shut down. We had 3 commanding officers from various divisions within our jurisdiction, Northeast, Rampart, and Hollywood, come to our last meeting, plus their narcotics unit, vice unit, gang units, and we also have 2 neighborhood prosecutors. The consensus was that Measure D is working. So I really want to thank Councilman Englander and Weezer for all the work they put into this. I would say any money that can be allocated to the city attorney's office,
don't forget
please.
CD1 was involved in there.
Excuse me?
Don't forget CD1 was also mentioned in there.
Yes, absolutely, but you're new to the council, so. Any money that can be allocated to the city attorney's office is money well spent. Please do so. And if we can engage the planning department to do nuisance abatement, that would really speed up the process. So thank you so much. My neighbors are ecstatic.
Thank you. That's it? Motion to adjourn? So moved, adjourn. It's our longest meeting.